In his book, The Secular Scripture, Northrop Frye says that myths and fables, fairy tales, if you will, they have the exact same structure, okay, in terms of literary form, okay? What makes them different is the authority that society invests in them. A myth is going to have the most authority, right? You got the myth of Jesus Christ. That's going to have a lot more authority than a story like Cinderella, right? Cinderella's a fairy tale, but the way Northrop Frye analyzed these stories, he said, these myths and fairy tales, they are the same in terms of their structure. I'm not going to go into it deeper than that. Okay? You have the same kind of story. The only difference is, as he said, the social authority invested in the story. So, he says that these myths and fairy tales, which he describes as the mythical and the fabulous, they are visible behind, if you will, all stories in any particular culture, okay? You're going to find the basic pattern present in these stories all throughout all the stories in a civilization, a culture, what have you, right? So, I'm watching The Sound of Music again, and I suddenly realized the myth behind the story here. Okay, what is it? It's Cinderella. Okay? What do you have here? You have Maria, the nun who is Cinderella, right? And she's coming from where? The nunnery, which is, to a lot of us, that's where the stepsister and the stepmother live, okay? Most people don't want to be there, okay? And Maria was not happy there, and the folks didn't want her there. They were saying she wasn't fitting in, okay? So she goes to this guy who's the prince, Captain Von Trapp, and you see here on this one particular night when he's having a party, just like in the Cinderella story told by Disney, in his movie Cinderella, okay? There's a party so that the prince can find a princess. And what happens? Well, you clearly see that the prince in the Disney movie is not seeing any of the women that are coming to his party as of any interest to him. And what does he do? He looks past everybody and he sees this one woman off in the distance, completely separate from everybody at the party, and he walks past everybody over to her and dances with her. Well, what do you have here in Sound of Music? The prince, Captain Von Trapp, is having a party, and he sees this woman all by herself, out separate from everybody. What's she doing? She's dancing with his kids, and he walks past everybody out to where she is, ignoring everybody in the party, and dances with her exactly like in the Disney representation of that story, Cinderella. Then what happens? Well, in Cinderella, midnight comes around. She's got to leave, right? Because she's been told the spell that's given her beautiful clothes, or the coach that got her there and so on, they're going to turn back into what they were at midnight. Okay? She's like, going to be wearing the rags she was in, and the coach is not a coach, and the horses were mice and so on. The whole thing changes back at midnight. Well, Cinderella runs off. The prince is there. Wait a minute. What's going on? Where are you going? Okay? Well, what happens here? Maria dances with the prince, and then suddenly she's got to leave there and go back to the nunnery. Why? Well, it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't really matter. We see that the story is following the same exact pattern as in the myth, if you will, told by Disney, okay? In the case of The Sound of Music, the idea that this Captain Von Trapp has fallen in love with her, this is upsetting to Maria. So she runs back to the nunnery, back to the stepmother's house. She leaves. And the prince there, Captain Von Trapp, he said, where did she go? So the next day the kids are asking him, where's Maria? What happened? Well, he doesn't know, right? Just like the prince in the story. Well, I could go on, but there's a sketch of the kind of thing that Northrop Frye was talking about, not just in the secular scripture, but in his basic explanation of this entire way of looking at literature in Anatomy of Criticism. That's all from me for now. Bye for now.